Best NBA player from each decade. Let's go. For the best player in the 1950s, I have Bob Pettit. This one was pretty easy. During the 50s, Pettit had 6 All NBA first team selections. He was a 2-time MVP, one of those being the first MVP ever awarded, and he had a championship. This was not very close. Pettit was obviously the best player of the 50s, probably the first superstar we ever saw in the league. For the best player in the 1960s, I have Bill Russell. Now, this may be a little controversial to all you guys, but Wilt Chamberlain just didn't win. And it's not like Bill Russell was a bad player. He won MVP 4 times in the 1960s. You pair that with his 8 NBA championships during the 1960s, he's the best player of the 60s. Sorry, Wilt. Very close runner up, but I'm going to have to go with Bill here. Coming in as the best player in the 1970s, I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Let me just read you off Kareem's accolades during this decade. 5 NBA MVPs, 1 championship, 1 Finals MVP, and 6-time first-team All-NBA selections. This was another one that was just so easy. No one even touched him in this decade. Kareem, far and away the best player in the 70s. For the best player in the 1980s, I have Larry Bird. This was probably the closest race of any decade. It was either Magic or Larry. It was a 2-horse race, but I ended up going with Larry. These are some of Larry Bird's accolades during the 1980s. He was a 3-time MVP, a 3-time champion, a 9-time first-team All-NBA selection, and a 2-time Finals MVP. I wouldn't argue with you if you picked Magic Johnson for this, but I just think Larry Bird edged him out a little bit. He's the best player of the 1980s. For the best player of the 1990s, to no one's surprise, I have Michael Jordan. Everybody knows how dominant Michael Jordan was during this decade. He was a 4-time MVP, 6-time Finals MVP, 6-time champion, 7-time All-NBA first-team selections. This was the easiest one of this video. No one touches this man, not even like in his same stratosphere. Easily, Michael Jordan, best player of the 90s. For the best player of the 2000s, I have Kobe Bryant. It was either him and Shaq, and they were practically identical. I just think Kobe edges Shaq out just a little bit. During the 2000s, Kobe was a 4-time champion, a 1-time MVP, a 1-time Finals MVP, a 7-time All-NBA first-team selection, and a 6-time first-team All-Defensive selection. Again, close with Shaq, but Kobe gets the edge. For the best player of the 2010s, to no one's surprise, I have LeBron James. Just as easy as the Jordan selection, LeBron in the 2010s was a 3-time MVP, 3-time champion, 9-time All-NBA first-team selection, and a 3-time Finals MVP. In a generation with so much talent, LeBron clearly separated himself as the best player of this decade.